Okay, listeners, you might be surprised to hear this, but neither Julie or I drink. We both used to. We don't anymore for very different reasons, and we're about to tell you why.
But before we dive in, remember that Midlife Confidential is powered by you, our listeners. We gather your anonymous stories and data on the midlife topics that usually stay behind closed doors, then bring those insights into the light. To stay connected with us, please follow the show on your favorite platform. It's the best way to support the show's growth and ensure you never miss a conversation. Whether it's that plus sign on Spotify and Apple or the YouTube subscriber button, that one tap makes a world of difference. If you're having any trouble finding us, reach out. We're happy to help.
Yes, we are your tech support. All right. Well, we're going to dive into this. So I think it would be helpful, Julie, if we both just kind of share our stories about our relationship with alcohol over time. So, Julie, I'm going to kick it over to you. Tell us about you and alcohol.
Ooh, I feel kind of naked all of a sudden. Well, actually, I feel like we've sort of soft launched this a little bit because we did
Yeah.
our first episode in this series all around the data that we got from our listeners. And then we had Casey. For those of you who didn't listen, you should go back and listen. It's a really good episode. But she was a lovely guest that we had on our show last time around. And so yeah, it's very apropos that now we talk about ourselves. Okay. So I will start off by saying that I'm a total teetotaler, but I wasn't always this way. And I guess let me back up and say that I absolutely hate labels. In any kind of a label, in any part of life, I personally don't identify as anything. I don't give myself a label. Maybe just somebody with disordered drinking. And I kind of took an early exit, got off that train early. And if anybody wants the full episode, go back and watch that episode with Casey because her story and my story are eerily similar. But really, I mean, alcohol runs really deep in my family tree. And I started noticing probably for a long time, but I really started noticing back in probably 2016, 2017, after both of my kids were born, just lots of things about my drinking patterns that I didn't like
Hmm.
and that were no longer serving me.
Okay. What can you share? Like what were those things?
Yeah. So, for example, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was out all the time, meeting friends for drinks, going to brunch on Sundays. I traveled a lot for work, so I don't know, I think daily drinking back then for me was just very much a normal part of my professional and personal identity. There was no quote unquote disorder at the time, but once I had kids, my drinking became more like couch drinking, right? A couple of drinks at the end of the night after the kids went to bed started to become more. Started feeling like crap the next day. I tried to moderate and limit it only to the weekends or only when we went out, and that just got really irritating.
Mm.
And I will add that I am very much an all or nothing type person. Like 1 glass of wine at dinner or 2, like, why bother? Is my philosophy. I'm like that girl that starts planning my next vacation when I'm on vacation. Or when I find, like, the perfect white tea, I don't just get 1, I get 1 in every color.
I feel that deeply. Yes. I mean, let me just say white teas, if you can find a good one. The perfect white tea is hard to find. So there is some truth.
Mm. I'm on a lifetime search for the perfect white tea. But as I said, my drinking was increasing. I noticed it kind of i- interfering in my head a lot. That angst of like, when are the kids going to go to bed? Or, when can I have my reward at the end of the day? It was getting too noisy. It was increasing. I know how this story goes, particularly when it's hereditary. Um, and so, yeah, so I
Mm.
stopped in 2018. I'm wildly oversimplifying it, but that's when I decided I can't I can't make all these rules with myself. I'm just gonna not do it anymore because
Can I
So,
ask a question? Have you I'm asking this like I don't know, but for our audience, have you had any drinks since 2018? Like what does that look like?
no, I think I probably had a sip of red wine during a Passover Seder one year.
The good stuff.
um, the good stuff. Wasn't grape juice. No, that's it.
Okay. Okay. So interesting, Julie. I love how you talk about the noise being one of the signals of this is maybe a problem, because I think a lot of times the outside, the physical, the things that are happening because of the alcohol, that's the problem. And but the fact that there was so much noise in your head, it was taking a lot of space in your head. Like that sounds like that's what was most problematic to you, at least at the time.
For sure, because let me be clear, nobody thought that I had an issue. My
Mhm.
husband didn't. He was even surprised. Although in hindsight, he probably was like, I mean, I definitely drank way more than him. But yeah, it was the amount of time I was starting to spend like thinking during the day of like, okay, like I'm gonna get my kids from, preschool, daycare, and then I'm gonna get home and I'm gonna fix dinner. And like, do I have wine? Should I stop and get wine? Like the thought of, am I gonna have some drinks tonight? No, maybe I shouldn't. Like that noise was getting more constant. And then the waking up in the middle of the night of like, "Ugh, it's Wednesday. Like, why did I have 4 glasses of wine
Mhm.
earlier tonight?
Mhm.
Now I
Mhm.
can't get back to sleep." And, you know, people who wake up in the middle of the night wondering if they have an issue with alcohol probably do. And then waking up at 6 for the kids and for work and for all the hustle, like feeling just at a deficit and dehydrated, sort of low grade
Yeah.
hangover. So there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of high functioning, high achieving women that are living like this. And again, no judgment, you do you. But it's a real like I feel underreported. We don't talk about it enough. And I think once I started talking about my story, a lot of people whom I know and don't know came to me asking like, "Oh, gee, how did you do it? Or why did you do it? Or could I do it too?" sort of thing. So that's been really nice. That's been a nice byproduct.
Mm, that's great. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah, and I will also say original why as a mom of 2 small kids at the time, my kids were 2 and 4, was they were my original why. I really, really looked deep in myself and my family history, and I was like, "I wanna stop this cycle, this generational cycle of, modeling these unhealthy ways of self-medicating or rewarding ourselves and, like, looking deeper." Um at kinda why I was doing it, but I think since then, it obviously has morphed into something bigger than that, and yeah, it's been a really positive change for me in my life.
Oh, you're such a good mom too. So that's great.
Yeah, and, the last thing I'll say is, and you and I have talked about this, and I know we're gonna get to your story in a second, but when I stopped drinking, I didn't know anybody that didn't drink. Like, I will say, I thought people who didn't drink were weirdos.
Yep.
I probably would not have jumped at the chance to make a friend that didn't drink because why would you not? Right?
Yeah.
I always was fascinated by somebody that could have just one drink at dinner and then move on to coffee. I'd be like, "What? This is it? We're moving on to that stage? That's no fun." But anyway, I'm still fun. I think I'm still fun at least. And I have a lot more energy. So there you go.
You are still fun. And I had the same feelings because I also don't drink anymore. And yeah, I thought those people were weirdos and lame.
Mhm.
So, Julie, there's no one else I'd rather be in the weirdo lane club with. But yeah, you are fun, and I think that's been part of this journey is like rebranding what it means to be sober, mostly for myself, I can say. Um,
Yeah, and I have to say, and our listeners know that you and I became friends through our kids who are the same age and we're in the same mom group. And I remember getting that text from you one night. You sent me a text and was like, "Hey, I heard that you also don't drink." It was just a basic text like that, and I was like, "Jenny doesn't Like, this is a dream come true to find a friend in your community that doesn't also do this thing,
Yeah.
kinda stick together. So, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was so desperate. So early 2020s. I mean, it's such a blur that COVID time, but let's just say somewhere it was after COVID, um, AC, when I stopped drinking and I was so desperate to find somebody else that I could talk through this with because it was a real change. So I don't drink. My reasons are very different. They are medical related. So just to back up, I've always been a drinker, but I've really been like a social drinker. I mean, I definitely had a period in my life in college and after college where I did some binge drinking, but I was never a hardcore drinker. Like I wouldn't drink outside of a social scene. I'm a lightweight, so it wouldn't take too much to get drunk. I really enjoyed it though, but it was never something that I would do again outside of a social situation. And then in my adult life, after I had kids, early 20s, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder that affects the liver, essentially autoimmune liver disease. I found out about it. I got super lucky. It was some blood work for something else that happened to show I had elevated liver enzymes. I ended up, having additional tests, seeing a specialist, ultimately had a liver biopsy and was diagnosed with this thing. And so, because my liver is at risk, now granted, I am fine. I have treatment. I'm on medication that keeps things at bay. But really, I can't do anything that could potentially compromise my liver because it's already in a vulnerable state. And so what does that mean? I cannot drink.
Mm.
And it was really hard at first. I mean, it was scary because it was this medical thing that I didn't know anything about, on immunosuppressants. So that comes with a whole nother layer of complexity, other things that I have to be really careful about outside of just, making sure that I'm not consuming alcohol. But I think that part was easier to move past. It was more the stigma that I attached
Mm.
to being a sober person in a world where alcohol is so prevalent. I didn't realize how prevalent and pervasive it was in my life and my social scene until I couldn't have it anymore.
Mhm.
That has taken a lot of time for me to work through, and I will be honest, I'm still not totally there. It's so much better now, especially meeting people like you, Julie, and also even through this podcast, people have kind of come out of the woodworks and shared with me that they've also stopped drinking or have reduced their alcohol intake. I'm seeing that with a lot of friends. So I feel a little lucky in that this happened at a time where sober curiosity is trending. And, I don't feel so alone in this, but it's been a journey. And so I really don't drink at all. Every once in a while, I will allow myself a celebratory drink. Even my doctor said, like, at a special occasion, you can have a glass of wine. And there was a period of time where I was still hanging on. And I said, once a month, I can have a drink.
Saturdays are
Yeah,
special occasions.
yes, yes, yes. An anniversary, or yeah, we're going to the beach. I just want a beer. I will say, though, less, it's not that worth it to me anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't enjoy it the way I used to. So that stopped a bit too.
So, let me ask you, well, 2 questions. The first question is, when you had all your blood work done and you were diagnosed, it was, "Okay, game over, like, you can have no alcohol." That was the news that you were delivered. If you have alcohol, what would happen if you went on a bender this weekend?
I don't know. What my liver doctor says to me is any amount of alcohol could be harmful.
Mm.
If you have a drink, is that going to send you into cirrhosis? No. But really, it's like no good can be done. And
Yeah,
is it worth it?
yeah,
Um, I am a rule follower. So if you tell me that I can have one drink, like I will not go to two. I will
yeah,
never push that boundary. But what my doctor said is like, she doesn't know that. And so for her, it's better to say zero
yeah.
drinks. That is what a doctor is going to recommend. And that's also kind of been easier for me too. Like, is it worth it to go on a bender? I don't know how that's going to affect this organ in my body. So, like, it's probably
Yeah,
not.
yeah. If you have to ask yourself if is it worth it, it usually isn't.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
I wonder too if being told you can't do this thing, and knowing what the cause and effect will be, like, it's actual science versus, like, me telling myself, "I could if I want to."
It certainly makes it easier. I also think I don't get pressured to drink like some others might because who's going to argue with this medical condition that most people don't know anything about?
True.
So, yeah, I think it definitely makes it easier. And I'm being held accountable. I go for regular blood work, so, I'm going to see it if I'm doing something that's harming me, I'm going to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think alcohol is one of those things, unlike gluten and sugar, so where if you say it doesn't agree with you or you're not doing it, it's not quite as celebrated. I think that's usually just a reflection of somebody else's lack of understanding. It can sometimes create some discomfort in other people because you're
Yeah.
not necessarily saying why unless they push. But what I found is most people don't push.
I also have not experienced that. If someone's gonna push me, like, that's not a friend that I wanna
Yeah,
have. I think, those people are not in my life anymore.
that's a really good point. When I first stopped, it was 2018. I really struggled with making sure the people in my life understood and new people I met that there wasn't this deep, dark, sordid past of me, like, right? Like that felt that it was very important. And it's not coming from a place of caring what other people think, as much as it is wanting to be understood and not misunderstood.
Mhm.
So when somebody asked why I wasn't drinking, or when I started telling those in my life that I wasn't drinking, I really was like going overboard with qualifying it. And I think I really thought that people would care more than they do. And so that's just took a long time to get comfortable with. Even my son, who's 12 now, we talk about it openly. I am very intentional about talking about addiction and how much more likely we all are and they are to struggle with this just given our DNA. And my son will has said things like, "Oh, back when you used to drink wine and you got all crazy." And I'm like, "I didn't get crazy." Well, maybe I did a few times, but I'm like, "Buddy, there isn't this other me
Yeah,
pre-2018, that you would be embarrassed about." But
yeah,
it's hard to have the language that they understand,
yeah,
but I do look at it as a gift to them that they will someday be thankful for it.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a great
And
a great perspective to have. Yeah.
so for I kind of know the answer to this, but I think it's a good conversation to have for our listeners. So how do you navigate social events? I mean, they're fewer and farther between these days than they were. So to your point, like it's a good thing that it's this stage of our life, but I mean, we have a lot of social events. The summertime's coming up. We go to the pools and the beaches and stuff.
Yeah.
What is that like for you having to abstain?
I'll be honest. It kinda sucks. But I also wanna, like, classify social events and just, like, weekends because I think the big parties that are, like, few and far between, but they do happen, where everyone is there with the intention of, "Kids are not here, let's let loose." Those have been really hard. They're really fun for me for the first hour or 2, and then everyone is so fucking annoying because they're drunk and I'm sober. And no fault of theirs. I'm also like, when I'm drunk, I'm annoying. I'm loud. I find things funny that probably to a sober person aren't funny. I'm having a good time. I'm in my own world. But to be a sober person, witnessing that and having to be there for that, like, it's really hard. And so I think in those situations, I've had to just know where my limits are and go and enjoy the parts that are really enjoyable and then feel okay saying, I'm going to say goodbye. I use marijuana. So like that sounds like such an old way of saying it. I use marijuana. I don't think that's what the kids say. I smoke cannabis, I take gummies, whatever it is, because there is something really great about kind of taking the edge off and having a little bit of like social lubricant, especially in these large social situations. So I think those are my two strategies for navigating that. What about you?
I love that. Yeah, I what you just said about time and how much time you spend really resonates with me. I have found that when I used to drink, I we'd go to, a party or a family event that was happening late afternoon or evening, and I'm fine staying late into the night. And my husband doesn't drink a lot, so he's always up for driving. And I was never up for driving. Like, I would have been pissed if he was a big drinker and we had to negotiate that every time. Now, I hit a wall. I have, like, a max limit of maybe 3 hours.
I will say I have found, and maybe this is just as I'm getting older, like nothing all that great happens after the 3 hour mark. So, and a lot of this I'm telling myself, I think, just to come to terms with this, but like
Yeah.
in reality, I can have a really good time and leave and get a good night's sleep. Like that's a win because the shenanigans and the sometimes the bad things are what happen after that 3 hour mark.
Yeah, I can say that there was never a time in my life where I look back and say to myself, "I wish I drank," or "I wish I drank more." But
Mm,
there are gazillion and one times where I woke up and said, "I wish I didn't have those last 2."
yeah.
Because I don't remember anything. After 10 PM, it's all one big blackout.
We all say it was fun the next day, but does anyone really remember? Because I sure as hell don't.
Yeah, but it is hard. I mean, it is a social lubricant,
Yeah.
so, that's something to grapple with, but there are so many yummy alt beverages, and sometimes for me, like, just having something in my hand that's not a
Mhm.
boring glass of water or even a seltzer water, like, something a little bit different scratches the itch to feel like I'm in community with others and not this kind of
Totally.
pariah over on the side. Not that that's what I'm
Yes.
doing.
No, but I'll say that's been something that I've had to grapple with is that I do feel like a pariah on the side. I either feel like the really lame, unfun person who can't do the thing that everyone else is doing, or the like, I'm holier than thou because I'm not drinking and alcohol is poison. I don't want to be either of those people.
Yes.
And so, yeah, something as simple as like just having a non alcoholic beverage or a drink. And I got to say, I am so hydrated. Like, I'm not a big water drinker normally, but man, needing to have something in my hand. I pee all night. I'm not up at
Totally.
3 a.m. because of the alcohol. I'm up because I had like five seltzer.
Your skin looks fabulous.
Oh, thanks, thanks. All right, you talked about your husband a little bit. What does your husband think, or what's your relationship with your husband and this sobriety?
Yeah. When I first stopped drinking, he was like, "Really? You're gonna stop drinking? Really?" And to be fair, I do not unload a lot. I keep a lot inside. And so I had been like harboring all of these thoughts and these questions and secretly Googling things and reading Quit Lit and stuff like without him even knowing because I wasn't sure I was gonna stop. I wasn't sure if I would be successful. When I was moderating, I didn't want him to know that I was moderating because then I was saying out loud that I'm concerned about this, and the last thing I need is somebody else
Yeah,
kind of worried about me. So he was surprised, but so supportive. And he was like, great, designated driver all the time. And he's a social drinker and he doesn't drink a ton, so it's really been a non-issue. I'm thankful for that because I think it's really hard for anybody in a relationship when one is committing to stopping or cutting back and the other isn't. That could be really,
yeah,
really hard.
yeah. Oh,
How about you?
well, my because my situation is different. My husband was obviously very supportive in me not drinking. He cares about my health. He wants me to stick around for as long as possible, mostly because I don't know how our home would function without me now. So, very very supportive in that sense. He does drink though, socially. So I wouldn't say, it made a big impact on like our home life. And I would say he probably does not notice it as much as I do. It's been harder for me to have a husband that drinks socially because he's also like my person, you know? And so I've been so grateful to have friends, especially like you, Julie, that I can kind of commiserate with because it's harder for me to, it's hard for him to understand what it's like to be a sober person in a drinking world. I think he's thrilled that he now has a DD. I know he is. I'm not so much. I don't like driving at night, and that's usually when the parties happen. But you know, we've found a way to navigate our very different experiences with alcohol. Not to say that it's hard for me sometimes. I will admit it's hard.
Yeah, I get that.
And I want to be really honest here. Like sometimes it's not as much fun. You know,
Mhm,
it's like
mhm.
the drink allows you to like take a step out of your real life where it's like work and home and kids and chores and responsibilities. And it like allows you to escape a little bit. And I think
Yeah,
that's really important in your relationship. And so to have a date night where, at least for me, without something to like help pull me out of that real
yeah.
life stuff, it's hard to put all that stuff aside. And that's something that I'm working on is like, how do I find joy without assistance? How do I really just like compartmentalize, like, because I know it's possible to be light and let all that stuff go without something to help. But this is a journey that I have not fully figured that one out yet. So if any listeners have figured it out, please let us know.
Yes, do let us know. You're also a doer though, Jenny, like, you are constantly on the move too. Keep me honest here. For people like you and me who are sort of walking through life like a motor, sitting in stillness and quiet is really uncomfortable.
Yes.
The metaphor that I'm thinking of is a bubble, right? Like, me sitting on the couch at night with a glass of wine is the equivalent of me just putting this, like, warm and fuzzy bubble around me that no one can really get into. It's just this cocoon that, you know, that exists, and, like,
Mhm.
without the wine, it's hard to be still and quiet and content, not feel like something is missing.
You are exactly right. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a huge part of it. Yeah, alcohol or substances allow me to stop moving and to get off the hamster wheel, which is where I live most of my life and where
Yeah.
I'm typically pretty content. Like that's just who I am and that I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. But it's hard without some sort of assistance to get off it and be content with the quiet. Like I'm not a sit on the couch kind of person, but I probably would benefit a little bit from that.
My husband teased me recently, and he was like, "I feel like your new thing, your new addiction is reading. You're just always in that book." I'm like, "Well, is that the worst thing in the world that I read at night for too
Well, it
long and
depends.
stay up too
What
late?"
what are you reading?
Nothing too salacious. I think it honestly, he's onto something because it is like my new nightly ritual that has to happen once the kids are in bed and the kitchen's cleaned up, like, yeah, it probably has replaced it, but I think that's probably not harmful in the least.
Not harmful, unless it's getting in the way of you doing other things, like
No,
forgot to
no.
pick up the kids because I was so into my work. This brings up another question that I have, about kind of like when you take alcohol away or whatever your substance is, there is kind of a void that needs to be filled. And I can share my experience and would love then Julie to hear yours about like what's filled that space for you. Because I can say for me, it's been really positive in that, and it's given me some drive to like do a lot of personal development and also, like, not drinking has, like, given me this new identity of being healthy, and I would say and maybe it's a coincidence, but after I stopped drinking, I've started to eat better. I mentioned I'm more hydrated. I started going to the gym, and so I think I've started to, like, create this new identity around just being healthy in the inside, and a lot of personal development, a lot of new relationships. I've met new people, you being one of them, where, you know, it's been really fun, and I feel like I've entered a new chapter in my life, and whether or not it's totally related to the alcohol or stopping of alcohol, I don't know, but it's been a nice coincidence if not. What about you?
100%. Yeah, same. For me, not drinking has opened up kind of a world of new things. And I also think that that has to happen for a lot of people to kind of be successful because if you just take the thing for me, if I just took wine out of my routine, I would be feeling deprived.
Yep.
I would be feeling like I can't have this thing that I want and now I just have to live without it. And I think I'd be a pretty pissed off person. So I look at it more as wellness currency. I've taken improv classes. I had a whole career change, which I don't think I would have been motivated to do. There's just so much more that I do now that I just know wouldn't have happened because of my little nightly routine.
So interesting. It's
Yeah.
just it's fascinating to me that the broad implications of something like giving up alcohol. I think at a surface level you think it just means that like, you know, your maybe your skin will be better. I don't know, your the physical stuff, but really like it's opened the door for so many other things. I just want to put a little caveat here that like I don't want this to come across that we're like, drinking is bad. You should all
Mhm.
stop drinking like us because, and we've talked about this, Julie, like, we do not believe that. Obviously, if it's something that you're thinking about, we support you. But also, social drinking can be great and it's fun. And if you have a good relationship with it and it's not impacting your life in a negative way, like, go do it. So I
Mhm.
just, and we love our friends that still drink, and I wanna make sure it's very
Yeah.
clear that we're not here to sell you all on non-drinking. This is just our own experiences. They've been very positive, but these are just our own experiences.
Yes. Agree wholeheartedly, 100%. I wish that I could be like some of you listeners, but I cannot.
We're just jealous.
I'm very jealous.
Yeah, or like I mentioned, like the beach, or after a big ski day, opera. There is something so awesome, and even just
Yeah.
one nice cold drink or a nice glass of red wine in front of the fire. Yeah, yeah.
When I first maybe a year or so after I stopped drinking, the first person I said out loud to, "I think I might drink too much," was a therapist that I was seeing at the time. My dad had just passed away. I was just in a rut, struggling, and I brought that up to her, and, anyway, she was incredibly helpful, and she was like, "Why don't you write down, like, your story?" Because I was just really struggling to figure out, like, "Do I have a problem? Am I defective? What would this look like? How do I talk about it?" Anyway, so she had challenged me in one of my homework assignments to write it down, and I did, and, um I ended up putting it out there in the world as sort of a challenge, and it ended up getting picked up by a couple of publications. Yeah, what's been a real gift in all of this, Jenny, is the amount of people that have reached out to me that maybe wouldn't have started talking about their own drinking had they not heard me
Mhm.
talking about it and writing about it. We all know the generations before us, they're really the only outlet for somebody that was trying to stop drinking was a 12-step type of
Right,
program,
right.
right? Like a church basement with crusty old men drinking bad coffee and smoking
Yep,
cigarettes. And I
yep,
think that really prevented so many people of like my parents' generation from really getting the help that they needed. So I think seeing a real person, with, you know, real issues, kind of struggle with this thing and talk openly about it, kinda gives permission for other people to seek out different modalities of support for whatever the thing is they're trying to stop doing.
yeah,
So that has
yeah.
been it's been a real light.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so, on that note, if anyone is listening and they're thinking about this stuff and they want a safe space or someone to talk to, Julie and I are always here. Clearly, we love talking about this stuff. You guys just got like a sneak peek into like what Julie and my outside of podcast conversations are like. We could probably go on all day, you know, pontificating on the reasons why and why we're doing the things we're doing. It's always such a great conversation. So thanks for sharing your story, Julie, and giving us a little peek behind the curtain into your
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, you too. I feel like I learned some things about you that I didn't know too, Jenny.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Okay, I have a question, kind of a fun, I don't know if we want to call it a game, but I'm going to make it up. It's called
Okay.
What's in Your Fridge? So, what beverages are in your fridge that are your go tos?
I'm so boring. It's mostly seltzer. I'm not a big non-alcoholic beer drinker. It's mostly seltzer. Really like LaCroix right now. I really like plain seltzer, but and I like to put like a little piece of fruit in there.
Yeah.
I'm also really into like water with lemon and mint and cucumber to like create that like spa water. I sound so lame. This was a really fun game, Julie. What about you?
I actually think you sound really fucking fancy.
I'm very fancy.
I am also pretty boring, but I've recently discovered hop water, which I really like. They have a really good one at Trader Joe's, but you can kind of find it anywhere. It's like still water that's hoppy like a beer, but it doesn't taste like
Mm,
cheap beer. I
okay.
like that. I was never a big beer drinker, but I really like athletic NA beer, especially après ski or in the summertime.
Mhm.
What else? I recently heard about NA Sauvignon Blanc. I think it's sea glass that is so close to the real thing that you got to check the label to make sure you're not drinking actual wine. So I want to try that.
Oh.
A lot of coffee. I am
I was gonna
heavily
say, love
caffeinated
coffee.
person in the first part of the day. It's my
I
favorite thing.
love coffee, and before I stopped drinking, I remember having a conversation with someone, and they said, "If you had to give up alcohol or coffee, what would you give up?" And I was like, "Alcohol." I could not give up coffee.
Mhm.
And then, a year later, I gave up alcohol. So I would, yeah, add coffee. I don't have a lot of it, but God, it just makes me happy. The smell, the taste, the holding of the hot mug. It has to be hot, hot coffee.
Yep. I told my husband recently the best part of my day is the 30 minutes after, sorry, kids, the 30 minutes after the kids go to the bus stop and he takes the dog for the walk and I'm sitting here
Ugh.
drinking my coffee. That's my first favorite part of the day. My second favorite part of the day is at about 10 o'clock at night when I am alone under my covers with my book, face washed, teeth brushed, in my bubble, my new bubble with my book. And so I was
Okay.
telling him that, and he's like, "Sounds like you're really only happy when no one's around." And I was like, "Bingo."
Yes, nailed it. I could not agree more. Although my only difference is, as you've shared earlier, I'm not sitting on the couch. I am like organizing the junk drawer or listening to a podcast while like folding laundry, but I'm alone. What does that mean? All right, you know what? That's a future episode. So stay tuned. We'll do a future episode on what is your happiest part of the day in midlife, and we'll see if other people are with us.
Ooh, I like that. Maybe we do a little mini poll on Instagram or something.
Yes. Okay. Well, Julie, if we do that, how will people know about it?
I see what you did there, Jenny. They have to follow us at The Real Midlife Confidential on Instagram and Facebook. Remember, follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, people, and keep an eye out. We've got a new poll coming.
Hmm.
Don't forget to take it. As a reminder, you are the gasoline that fuels this engine.
Yes. And until then, keep your secrets safe unless you're telling us.